So I woke up this morning and I was scrolling Twitter, which was like 5 minutes ago because I still look like I'm half asleep. But I came across something that I had to jump in front of the camera for because it kind of pissed me off a little bit. There was a tweet with an article that said Jay-Z accuser says she made some mistakes in her allegations, stands by her statements overall. And of course, because we just covered this in a video, I was extremely curious what this meant because I was saying in my video that if Jay-Z did it, throw him under the bus. But as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any tangible evidence, and a lot of the story just seems weird to me. I'm still wondering why a 13-year-old girl would be at the VMAs by herself trying to get in, how she came across some limo driver that then brought her to an after party. She's just 13, walking around by herself, chopping it up with celebrities. It just doesn't seem realistic to me. Regardless, this article kind of explains why. Speaking with NBC News, the woman whose identity remains protected as Jane Doe said, not all the faces are clear in her recollection of what happened to her over 20 years ago. She told NBC, I have made some mistakes. I may have made a mistake in identifying. NBC quotes Jane Doe and her father, whom they interviewed to fact-check the claim that he picked her up after the alleged assault. Jane Doe says he did. Well, the father refutes those claims. The report says he doesn't remember driving the more than 5 hours it would have required to get from their home to the location of the alleged attack. So I don't know about anybody else, but when I read this, I immediately get a whole bunch of red flags because first and foremost, her father does not remember driving 5 hours to go to wherever she was at in New York City to pick up his 13-year-old daughter. I feel like you would remember that because there can't be a lot of situations where you're letting your 13-year-old daughter go to a city alone 5 hours away. That doesn't even make sense to me, and I'm still curious why nobody is asking these questions. The first thing I would have asked the father when I sat down with him is, why would your 13-year-old daughter be in New York City trying to get into the VMAs all by herself? Did she run away? Was this something that you allowed her to do? Did you give her permission? Did she have a ticket? Like, I feel like you wouldn't let your daughter go and do that. I wouldn't have been let to do that at 13 years old. I could barely go down the street unless I told them where I was going and I checked in every so often. So it kind of blows my mind that at 13, she's just 5 hours away, just chilling, trying to get into VMAs. And if by chance my parents did let me go somewhere like that, they would have made sure I had tickets. They would have made sure I was prepared. I had a way to contact them. Like, they would have made sure of a whole lot of shit. And it just seems like this girl was just off on her own, like she was an adult. And I'm just wondering why nobody is bringing that up. Nobody is asking questions surrounding that. It just doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Now, regardless, if the father didn't know that that had happened to her, I get that going to pick up your child, you've done it a million times. So it's not always going to be something you remember. But in this specific situation, a 13-year-old being 5 hours away, I feel like you would know what was going on. I feel like that would be a memorable moment because that can't be something that happens very often. Regardless, she also says, I may have made a mistake identifying. And that's a little bit weird to me. Now, if she was 13 and trying to get into the VMAs, I assume it's because she knew who these people were. She apparently was at the after party chopping it up with celebrities, so you would assume she knows who Jay-Z is, she knows who Diddy is. And if both of those people were to walk into a room and take advantage of her, you would assume that you would remember that. Like, if I was assaulted by Madonna as a child, I'm gonna remember because it's Madonna. It's not like some random dude off the street I've never seen and I'm like, well, I think he looked like this. When it's a celebrity that you're familiar with, you're going to remember what that person looks like. Am I wrong about that? I mean, I've not been in a situation that she's in, so I guess I can't say, but I feel like I remember all interactions with people that I was very familiar with back in the day. When I was younger, I went to a Snoop concert. I can remember every detail from it, and this was literally probably 10, 15 plus years ago. So if something like that happened to me, there's no way I'm going to forget that Snoop did that to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Regardless, the article continues to go on. So the father's exact response was, I feel like I would remember that and I don't, he said. I have a lot going on, but I mean, that's something that would definitely stick in my mind. And I completely agree with him. And then regarding her father's comments, Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, is quoted telling NBC News, we agree he states he doesn't remember. His daughter explains that he was in no state to remember during that point in time due to personal issues he was having then. We are talking about a time frame more than 20 years ago. And I just kind of find it interesting that the daughter is aware that he was going through personal stuff and that he wouldn't have remembered because of that. But the father, the man himself, doesn't feel like there was anything going on because he specifically says, I would remember something like that. So you can't like put trauma on someone and say, well, this trauma and all this shit that was going on, that's why he doesn't remember. The person themselves would know better than you. Trust me. You cannot just say, hey, well, you know, this is why he doesn't remember. If I'm gonna be completely honest, I feel like that's bullshit. Now, in another part of the article, the woman also claims she spoke to musician Benji Madden at the 2000 VMAs after party, where she said she was taken advantage of, but NBC confirmed that neither Benji nor his brother Joel attended the 2000 VMAs. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that he couldn't have still went to the after party. I'm sure some people went to the after party that didn't go to the VMAs, but from everything that I'm seeing, he may not have even been in New York at all. So now she's also saying that she's talking to certain celebrities and they weren't even there. And of course she's gonna say, well, it was 20 years ago, I might have forgot. I'm sorry, but if you met a celebrity 20 years ago and you talked to them, somebody that you were familiar with, do you not think that you would remember who that was? Again, when I think back to all the different times that I may have came across celebrities, I remember who I talked to and who I didn't. I'm not gonna suddenly be like, man, I swear I talked to Justin Timberlake, but it was 20 years ago, so it might have just been some random guy. I just don't really understand that. And then the icing on the cake was the end of the article where it said Busby told NBC his client is in extreme distress and has been experiencing seizures due to the stress. Jane Doe's case was referred to our firm by another who vetted it prior to sending it to us, he said. Our client remains fiercely adamant that what she stated is true to the best of her memory. We will continue to vet her claims and collect corroborating data to the extent it exists because we have interrogated her intensely. She has even agreed to submit to a polygraph. I've never had a client suggest that before. Again, I'm just feeling like there's a lot of red flags. So I get it. I'm not trying to downplay it if she is actually having seizures and she is in extreme distress, because going through something like this, talking about it, having it out in the public, going through a lawsuit, I'm sure it's extremely stressful, but it also feels like they're just trying to bait you to feel bad for somebody so you don't question all the weird shit that's going on. And then on top of that, they make it a point to say, this is what she remembers to the best of her memory. And I can't help but feel like that statement was put in there because if it comes out that some of these people were not involved, she could say, well, see, it was the best of my memory. I must have forgot. I made some mistakes. And I don't know if that can keep you out of legal backlash, like as far as someone doing a countersuit or bringing a lawsuit for defamation, but it seems like that's what that might be. And then we top it off with the fact that he's like, listen, we've interrogated her so much, she's willing to do a polygraph. I've never had a client offer to do that before, like making it seem like it's this big deal. Like, yes, a polygraph does get used at times, but there's a reason why when in a court of law, they don't really go by polygraph because they're not 100%. It's more so something that cops and stuff may use to just get a gauge on how things are going, but it doesn't ever hold weight in court. So again, this just kind of feels like a statement that's trying to bait a lot of the average people that are reading through this into thinking, well, she's willing to do a polygraph, so she must be telling the truth. He's never had a client offer to do this before. So I don't know, this whole shit is weird to me. And again, this Tony Busby guy has been in a lot of situations where it seems like he's just out for the cash grab. He's literally the lawyer that people go to when they want to try to get some money from a celebrity. He is that guy. And so it's like, yeah, some of the stories may be true, but it also feels like he just picks up any case because if you throw a whole bunch of shit at the wall, something will eventually stick and then he gets paid as well. So I just can't really trust this guy. And it's the reason why Jay-Z in his second response called him 1-800-LAWYER. Today's investigative report proves this attorney Busby filed a false complaint against me in the pursuit of money and fame. This incident didn't happen, and yet he filed it in court and doubled down in the press. True justice is coming. We fight from victory, not for victory. This was over before it began. This 1-800-LAWYER doesn't realize it yet, but soon. And then Jay-Z's attorney also stepped in and said, it is stunning that a lawyer would not only file a serious complaint without proper vetting, but would make things worse by further peddling this false story in the press. We are asking the court to dismiss this frivolous case today, and will take up the matter of additional discipline for Mr. Busby and all the lawyers that filed the complaint. So it's not looking good for my man Tony Busby, and it makes me upset because I do feel like a lot of the Diddy complaints are real. Diddy is going through an actual criminal situation because there is something there, and we have to see what that ends up coming up with. This is just a civil lawsuit, but the fact that he did this with Jay-Z and he's just running with anything that he could possibly get his hands on is going to ruin that entire lawsuit. And so there may be some people attached to it that really were abused, that really were in bad situations with Diddy, and now the whole thing might get thrown out the window because he's going forward with shit that's just not true. Shit that can't be proven, and shit that even the own father is discrediting. Like it's a bad look, and it's insane to me, like they said, that this man would not have vetted this further before he not only filed it in court, but then pushed it into the public. So the only thing that he's accomplishing is potentially ruining the entire lawsuit. And the reason why that's sad is because there probably are some people attached to it that did have some shit happen to them. But because he's on this pursuit of Jay-Z and didn't even vet this story at all, to the point where she's talking to celebrities that weren't even there. And somehow now she doesn't even know if it was the right people. She doesn't know if she identified anybody properly. She may not even have been at a VMA's after party. That limo driver might have just lied to her. Maybe that guy really was real, and he brought her to some place that had nothing to do with Diddy or Jay-Z. She had a horrible experience, and now it's getting blamed on them. Like, I don't know at this point. I have to question everything. Now, I'm not saying Diddy is innocent, because Diddy is being accused by multiple people. So I think some of those are definitely going to be true. But this one specific situation, I'm starting to believe that it didn't happen. And this is only going to look bad for the overall civil lawsuit. Like, this guy has to do better work. If you're going to be an attorney that's going to bring shit like this to court, like, you've got to do your job, my guy. Like, this is ridiculous. So I don't know. I just wanted to cover that because we talked about it initially. Let me know what you guys think down below. I will catch you in the next one, homies.